So this is going to describe some work that I do with Pat Riddle, who spoke this morning about problem reformulation and bidirectional heuristic search. This talk is more of an overview of that research. So being in Hobbiton, it seemed appropriate to title this talk, "And One Problem Solver to Solve Them All." Unfortunately, it turns out, well, that was certainly the goal of Herb Simon, Al Newell, and Jeff Shaw back in 1959, long before probably even your parents were born. So they created a system called GPS, the General Problem Solver. And the idea was you gave it the description of a problem, and it solved it for you. Unfortunately, in the years since then, we have decided, or we've discovered, that to, oh, that's counting down. That it's not enough to solve a problem, you want to solve it efficiently. And that to do that, what you want is to adapt the problem solver to the specific problem that you're trying to solve. And part of that lesson that we learned is that there are no silver bullets. There's no one algorithm, no one representation, no one heuristic that's best for every problem. That given a problem, a computing environment, which is how much memory you have available, how many processors you have available, how fast those processors are, and the user's requirements, when he needs a solution by, and how good that solution has to be, you need to design a problem solver that is likely to solve that problem within those constraints. So the system that creates that problem solver is a meta-problem solver. And it has to decide whether the problem you give it can be decomposed into simpler subproblems, and then for the simpler subproblems, how to formulate the subproblem in a way that it'll be able to solve that problem effectively. It needs to decide what algorithm to use to solve that problem, whether it's going to be a unidirectional algorithm or a bidirectional algorithm or whatever. And then given the algorithm, it needs to find heuristics that will help guide it towards that solution effectively. So a couple of years ago, Pat and I went to Spain to work with Daniel Barajo and Raquel Fuentes Taja on developing a prototype for this approach. We had developed various components, which Pat talked about this morning. And so this system, MSP, Meta Search for Planning, what it would do is try to figure out which of the many design alternatives it should use to be able to come up with this specialized problem solver. So it chose between different ways of representing the types of objects, which Pat talked about this morning. It also looked at, to a very minor degree, whether it should use a bidirectional algorithm or a unidirectional algorithm. It also looked at what set of heuristics would go well with that choice of representation and that choice of algorithm. And there was also another little bit where there were different ways to translate the user definition of the problem in Paddle into the internal representation for the problem solver, SAS+. And basically, it would go through this design space, trying to search for the most appropriate combination of those algorithm representation and heuristics. 36. All right. There's a couple of references to some papers that we've published. MSP is that last one, AAAI 2018. The one about changing the representation of types of objects is the HISDIP 2016. And then in 2014 is the one about how do you select a selection of heuristics. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much.